In times of trauma and adversity, we must create space for connection by sharing a story of hope. Welcome to Stories of Hope Worldwide, hosted by Kerry Atherton. This podcast shares inspiring stories of individuals who have faced significant challenges and emerged stronger, offering hope and resilience to listeners all over the world. Join Kerry, the founder of Stories of Hope, every week to hear these remarkable journeys and find strength to overcome your adversity. Now, let's listen in to this week's conversation.
Welcome to another episode of Stories of Hope Worldwide. I'm Kerry Atherton and I'm your host. And today's guest is Danny Lloyd. Danny is a soldier of hope in a hopeless world on a mission to make people smile again. Welcome, Danny.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
And I love your vision, your mission statement. I love it.
It's a very specific mission statement as well, and I can share it with you after. My mentor, through which I think a lot of my journey has really accelerated from. I'm actually jumping on a call with him after we've spoken, actually. And Reg taught me the law of specificity. If you want something, then be specific about it. You know, when people go, I want to buy a house. Okay, cool. And then that's all they say. But what size house do you want? How many bedrooms do you want it? What suburbs is it going to be in? How much is it going to cost? Is it going to have a back garden? And I can keep going. You can get the point. The law of specificity is how you end up achieving your goal. So much the same as in recovery or trying to get out of addiction. It's like, I want to stop drugs. Okay. Would you like to explain a bit more? Because that's not enough. I want to stop drugs because of these reasons. These are the drugs I'm on. These are the drugs I stop. I'm going to do it on this date with these supports through this method. So that law of specificity is very powerful in all walks of life, whether it be mental health disorders, whether it be disabilities, whether it be addictions, through to relationships and many other things.
So good. And it's so true. And when people come out of addictions, though, isn't it ironic that they have no idea what they want? But we'll get into that. You've got a big story, a sad story, but also a story of hope. And so you grew up with no dad.
Yeah, I'm writing a book about that right now, actually, for healthy masculinity. Yeah, so I grew up with no father from pretty much day dot. And unfortunately, on reflection, Kerry, I would suggest that a lot of my decisions that I've made have been because of that. And I've hidden behind that as an excuse for the decisions I've made, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So upbringing for me was full of love. My mother, my grandfather, my grandmother looked after me. Mum had to work a lot and work hard. 2, 3, 4 jobs sometimes. Single mother in the 80s. I was born in 83. She was a nurse, and in the UK, nurses are not actually paid very well versus what, say, an Australian nurse would be paid. And she just didn't want to struggle, or she didn't want her son to want for anything. I mean, a lot of that stuff on reflection, bless her cotton socks, is also, I guess, an overcompensation for the lack of a father and the fact that the plan would have always been, have a son and a partner, and we raise a family.
Yeah.
And I think when that's torn away from the person, there can be a level of overcompensation to make sure the child has more than they need because they're missing this big element.
Well, that's right. I mean, they're thrust into having to be a mum and a dad.
Yes, exactly. And so she ended up switching her career and decided that there was money in sales and business and wanted to do that. So she got a job as a receptionist and worked her way from receptionist. This is back in the day before we had all this PC rubbish we deal with now where it's all like whatever. And she just went, I'm going to apply for jobs within this company every time they come up, even though I've got no chance of getting them. And she'd get them every time. And she went from receptionist to the leading sales manager in the company within a few years. And she started being given territories around the world to go travel and sell in. This is before Zoom and all the things where you had to face-to-face sell. And she had territories in Africa. She had territories in the Middle East. And she had territories in Israel and Palestine where she had to like go cross border and have 2 separate passports to make business.
Wow. That's so inspiring, isn't it? Oh my
Uh,
goodness.
She was a phenomenal lady, and you know, you think about that now as a white lady in the early 90s trying to do business in the Middle East and Africa. Like, can you imagine the danger, but also the level of disrespect back then from that cultures versus women? And outside of that mother of mine, she's just amazing. She's dedicated the last 40, 50, maybe 50 years now to volunteering and working for charities for free. And she was actually worked for what we have in the UK called the Samaritans. So she actually got given a Lifetime Achievement Award for serving for them for 10 years for free. So I've watched her work hard as a soldier of hope. I actually, we're going to call her a general. We're the general of,
Yeah.
it's kind of not hard to become who I've become in the end, after all of my things. It's kind of hard not to become what I've become when I've modeled myself and watched someone growing up who's given me the recipes to succeeding in hope.
That's so great. And I really get what you're saying because my dad, when he died, he was sober 60 years in AA.
Yeah, wow.
And I just saw him model service to others my whole life. You know, I couldn't help but not want to be like that and not want to be that person that gives out to others and helps others recover and get well.
Well, look, I think it's the most selfish thing you can do is help somebody else, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's what everybody's North Star should be. They should not be chasing fame, fortune, and followers. They should be chasing gratitude, grace, and serving others. And the law of reciprocity will give back to you when you constantly give out to the universe, as long as you have specific goals as well that you want. The money story is always an issue for most people. They're like, I want to help people, but you know, I'll do it for free. It's like, if you want to make impact, you have to make income. It's okay to ask for what you're worth when you're giving back people their own value.
Yeah, it's so true. That's so true. Danny, you were also bullied as a child and bullied through school. And you mentioned in one of your clips that you had a big weight problem and hit 160 kilos. And then at that point, your best friend was murdered.
I had a lot of weight issues as a teenager. It was very, very strange, to be honest, because obviously my home was safe. You know, my mother and my beautiful stepfather, who is my dad to me, you know, they provided a good home, and all my Maslow's was met. You know, all my hierarchy of
Yeah.
needs. But still, I had this weight gain issue and self confidence issue and a very big people pleasing issue, always worrying about what people think. And so, yeah, at the peak, there's a picture of my mother and me at her wedding in St. Thomas. And I think I'm 15 and I'm 160 kilos and my hands are like massive. And I'm just, it doesn't even, I show people the picture, they won't even get their head around it. So an interesting story to give you an idea of the gross size of myself, both in height and weight for my age, was I was a very good rugby player. In fact, I could have been professional if I had not had these certain issues in one of my medicals. So basically, under 12s rugby, I never forget this because I've recently done a lot of work on myself and realized that this actual event probably affected me more than I realized. Under 12s, rugby, Guernsey versus Jersey. These are 2 neighboring islands down the south coast of the UK. Big rivalry. And come out onto the pitch to warm up. And it's just a normal kind of grassroots rugby pitch where all the parents or people just kind of line the touch line to create the crowd. And while I'm out there warming up, I could hear like a commotion, and my mother's in some sort of heated kind of discussions with these other parents. And then I see her leave and take off, and I could hear them talking. These parents basically, I can't remember the full what they said, but they basically made me feel like a circus freak. So they refused to let the game start until my mother went home, drove 40 minutes home to get a birth certificate to prove I was under 12. That gives you the kind of nature of my size versus my age in relation to people's warped opinion of it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was a struggle. And, I was never fit. I never fit in with the cool crowd. I never really fitted in places mainly. When I was 15 or 14 or 15, when everybody else was maybe 12, 13, 14, when everyone else was off, my peer groups around me seemed to have been quite sexually active from quite a young age, like 12, 11, 12, 13. This is back then, like, I know it was a different world back then. And while everyone was kind of out exploring the world of relationships or interactions, you'd find me up at a very cold, wet, muddy football park, or soccer, should I say. And there was me and these kind of four guys who were like we were like the rejects of the school. It was a very odd group of people. Like, one of them was very, very religious family he was in. So to the point, no TV, nothing, all that kind of
Oh,
stuff.
wow.
Another guy was just single parent, his dad, not his mother, and lived in quite like a council house, and lovely guy. And then another guy was actually from a very rich family, but didn't act very cool, I guess, very outcasted. And then the last guy I remember he had one eye, but the glass eye was too big for his head. So we used to go up there to the park every Saturday playing soccer, as you call it over here, but football, as I call it. We just dreamed that we were playing in the Premier League, and that was very fond memories for me when I think about it now. Like, just this band of misfits that kind of didn't really know where they fit, but they were puzzle pieces together that made sense.
Oh, I love that, because you talked about this, and I was talking to another guy the other day about this, that the opposite of addiction is connection, what we all need so desperately, isn't it? And especially when you go through life as a young person feeling like a raw exposed nerve.
Yeah, it's 100%. And it's something I've based all of my professional prowess and practice on. It is that very impactful video that I originally watched from Johan Hari on his TEDx talk, but actually the guy I've watched and studied for years, Dr. Gabor Mate, is actually a very key. The opposite of addiction is connection, but I'll actually challenge you to go one step further, and I'll actually tell you that the opposite of addiction is independence.
Right.
The opposite of addiction to me is independence. So when people have had their independence taken away for whatever reason, their agency taken away, could be from school, could be having no friends, could be in a relationship, could be from past traumas when they're growing up as sexually abused as a child, and that's taken their agency. They have no independence in their life anymore. And you think about it, right? Independence means being alone in a way. And so what's the biggest killer in addiction is loneliness, right? I learned that. Like, I learned after all my relationships failed and taken time, I almost kind of went on a bit of a monk thing for 3 years, where I just went completely off grid, celibate, like, just don't want nothing. Just leave me alone. Let me figure out why the patterns keep playing out. And I realized that I had a big issue with feeling lonely all the time. And so instead of being able to see a relationship or a lady come along and be able to see if that's a fit for me, notice any red flags, if we call it that maybe not for me and all that, I just grab onto the next person, because I'm like, I don't want to be alone. I went from one relationship of being there for nearly 5 years to finding out she cheated on me and walking out of that, and within 2 weeks going into my next relationship. It was just a constant fear of loneliness.
To fill the void, isn't it?
100%. So that independence at the beginning for those 3 years recently, I had to get to a point where I was my own best friend and I actually enjoyed my own company all the time. And when I got to that point, that's when I really started elevating.
And doing that, being alone with your thoughts and feelings, is something that's very scary for most people these days, regardless of whether they've got a problem with addiction or not. They're running from themselves, aren't they?
I'm gonna put it out there, because one of my biggest missions in life is to break the stigma of addiction, and we've got a lot of projects on the go that are going to do that. I'm going to put this out there right now. Every single person on this planet is an addict.
Yeah.
You know what everyone's addicted to? Emotion. Every single person on this planet, all the ones sitting in their glass houses and their ivory towers, looking down on the street kids and the thugs and the drugs, all of these people are only projecting. Their perception is projection, right? So what they're seeing is actually what's inside them, and they don't want to answer that call, so they'll go against someone that seems lower on the pecking order. But every single one of us is addicted to emotion. the emotion comes in and we make stupid decisions from it, and we create chaos and break lives and break hearts from the fact we cannot stop our addiction to the emotion, where our reaction then ends up causing the chaos.
Yeah, very relevant to all the CBT work that I do.
Yeah.
Danny, you went on then to lose your best friend. How old were you when that happened? Do you feel like you could share?
Now, look, you know what? Like, I don't have, as much as we said at the beginning, I've got a sad story. I'm really glad it happened to me, man. Like, I'm so much happier that it happened to me, that
Yeah.
I can have felt, experienced, and survived and grown through it, than it to happen to other people that I now can help very much back there, that don't have to go through up to this point, and help them not go through that. It's not a badge of honor. I've seen this so much on podcasts in the last year or two. This I call it like this trauma porn, right? Like, it's just this trauma porn. It's like who's got the worst story, and how messed up are we? And this happened on the streets, and I killed this guy. And it's like, man, we don't want to. People that are watching it, that are obviously drawn and want to hear amazing stories, it's awesome. But I would say to people watching it, don't emulate us. Don't, like, you've got a good life. It's good. Like, it's actually cooler to have a good life and to keep growing from it. I'm very much disconnected emotion out of any of my past.
That's great. That's a real gift to be able to do that.
My favorite quote: the past is a storyteller and the future is a liar. And I live by that. Nothing happens in the past.
Yeah, no, that's right.
So basically, I left Guernsey and went traveling when I was about 20 years old, and came to Australia for a year and a half, loved it, came back from my visa, ended back to the UK. I knew I wanted to move here. I worked my ass off, and became did a big apprenticeship to become a plumber so that I could move here, and this whole thing. And during this time, I met Sarah Groves in my formative years. And Sarah was the most beautiful, a lot younger than me, like, she was almost angelic in her heart and her purity of mind, and the way that she viewed the world, and her Hakuna Matata like theory of how she would look at everything. And I worked with her for quite some time in a bar that I kind of helped my friend run, and we were just kindred spirits. Like, we just got each other, and we were both very susceptible to feeling people's pain, and if it would affect us.
Yeah.
But that was also where our genius was, because we got to think how we can fix that, right? So anyway, fast forward when I finally moved to Australia, when I was like 28, I think it was, I struggled to fit in straight away, and I tried meth within 4 weeks of moving here. And I pretty much turned my dream into a nightmare. My addiction to meth was probably part-time at this point, before what happened to Sarah. Now, the thing that was quite confronting for me before what happened to Sarah was, a couple of years previous to her being murdered, I had been home to Guernsey to visit and caught up with her, and she was actually dating a long-term dating timeline they'd had together. A friend that I knew and her had been together for years. Unfortunately, it ran its course, but she struggled to deal with the breakup. And because Guernsey's kind of like a small town mentality, wherever she would go, she would either see him or be reminded of him, and it just was too much.
Yeah.
And so I remember, because like I said, I was a bit older than her, so I tried to impart some wisdom, and I just said, maybe it's good if you get out of here and go and see the world and just get some perspective. I'm over in Australia. If you want to come stay over or live with me, but get out and see the world. Anyway, I didn't really know the impact that was going to have until I left. Anyway, a couple of years after that, she texted me and said she was going off to Africa to climb Mount Kilimanjaro to raise money for Child Reach International to build a school. And she's going to be a part of seeing the school and meeting the kids and all the things. So she went up and did that. And then she was going to come to Australia at some point and catch up. And in between that time, she went to Kashmir and traveled around India. Now, India is a place where you need a bit of street smarts. It can be quite dangerous, and the beautiful thing about Sarah, which also was all a bit risky, is she's seen the best in everyone, but that naivety is dangerous.
Too trusting.
Yeah. So anyway, long story short, she ended up in Kashmir and ended up in a bit of a love interest with this Indian man, and his family owned this houseboat, like this hotel, like house hotel boats thing. The long and short of it is, I suppose I probably still can't comment. I'd love to just say what I want to say, but it's still ongoing, trying to get justice for Sarah, and like 12 years later. But the long and short of it was, one night while she was living there, someone broke into her hotel. Apparently, broke in, and she was murdered. And she's only a tiny little thing, bless her. And why I say that is because she put up a hell of a fight for whoever it is that did it. She stabbed, I think it was in the 30 plus times, and it showed from the timeline of the autopsy that she actually survived this attack for close to 30 minutes, which means that she fought for her life.
Oh, gosh.
The back end of it obviously was, I never forget it. I was in Melbourne. I was working for a big oil company doing a project for them. Doesn't really matter. I was on and off the meth, unfortunately, at that point, but it wasn't like high level. I remember getting up one morning and I never forget it. I was stood there, I was making a coffee, and I'm in Australia, remember, and this is Guernsey, tiny little island. And the TV's on, and it's 7 News or 9 News, whatever it is. And I can hear them talking about this international breaking story. So, this British tourist has been murdered on this houseboat. I didn't really pay any attention until I heard her name, and I look up and there's a picture on the side of the screen of her. And then behind that is the live footage of a body being carried out in a black bag. And I swear to God, it was one of the most surreal moments of my life. I couldn't even process. But I'll tell you, from that moment there, that's when my addiction for the meth, I mean, I'd had a lot of other addiction issues, but that's when it literally just lit like a bushfire, just on the spot.
What'd you tell yourself in that moment, Danny?
It was my fault because I told her to go traveling. That's exact, and that's not. I'm not saying this to make it about me. That's not what I mean.
Yeah,
but
no,
just to answer your question,
yeah,
that's what processed in my head within like seconds of realizing this was real.
yeah,
And I've pretty much dedicated my life ever since to all the work I've done to her. I talk about her all the time. I keep her memory alive. We will have a healing center one day with her name on it. And everything I do, and anytime I've struggled in business, and anytime I'm struggling with the mission, I always just think of her, and I get the wind back in my sails, right? I just find something in it. I've even got her, the Festival of the Dead over in South America and that, and they wear the masks to celebrate people.
What? Haven't heard of that yet.
I've got her face and her and that's her eye there. But that's the Festival of the Dead masks, and then that's her little initials kind of up there. So that way, it's on my heart. So it's like I always just kind of, when I'm struggling, I put my hand there, and I'm just like, okay, cool, let's go. When you have a why, you can bear any how. Her parents, Victor and Kate, I'm very close with, and it's destroyed that family, and they've gone through so much, and they still have no justice because India is a very corrupt country. And it's just unacceptable for me. But what can I do about that? Well, I can do a lot about helping others in her memory. I can't do much about the justice system in India.
Yeah, yeah. So at that point then, when you told yourself that story, kind of an inner vow as such, isn't it? That I'm going on a road now of self-destruction.
Yeah, it was pretty frightening for quite some time, and then the catalyst was to try and sort something out in my life, was that the lady that I had been dating for quite some time and I'd moved over with on a de facto visa, and we'd been together for a few years at this point. I'd taken this young lad off the street to help him. I've always been a bit of a waifs and strays guy. It's like a homeless hostel in my house sometimes. Well, not homeless, but like, people that are really struggling, and I'll always try my best to help them. This young kid in 19, and look, long story short, for whatever reason, her and him connected and they ran off together. And there was a whole thing I'm not going to go into because it is what it is and that's fine. But that moment there when I called my mum and told her, and she just kind of, she didn't allow me to feel sorry for myself or whatever. She kind of kicked me up the ass and said, what are you going to do about this whole thing, this complete shit show that you're in? What are you actually going to do about it? Because I'm sick and tired of hearing all this, the sorrow and the woe me stuff. What are you going to do? And I had this one guy I knew that I'd made as a friend outside of this group of people that she was attached to. And he was living in Alice Springs. He was pretty emotional. It was about as emotionally deep as a puddle, bless him. But you know what? He was a friend and he meant well. And I called him up and I told him what happened. And he just said, give me an hour. He called me back and he said, you still on that stuff? I said, yeah. He said, you still meant to be going to Africa? Because a year after this happened, in her memory, her family had organized to climb Mount Kilimanjaro with the same guides and the same porters as she had had the year before to scatter her ashes at the top of the mountain.
Oh, right.
So I was meant to be in training for that. And instead I was smoking meth.
How bad was your habit at that stage?
Every 5 minutes, just keep going. Yeah. And I have very high-end ADHD. So it was just medication to me. Because people do not know this, but meth is just the illegal version of ADHD medication.
Mm.
A lot of ADHD undiagnosed people that I've worked with in the prison systems and so forth, nearly always got meth attached to them.
Or some kind of addiction.
Yeah, because they're
alcoholics, which was my drug of choice. Same deal.
Yeah. And, it's a way of self-soothing. It's a way of escaping. It's a way of stopping the chaos in your head, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, he said, get an ABN, book a ticket, leave everything behind, just come up here and come stay with me and my family. And you can work for my business for the next 3 and a bit months and we'll get you hopefully ready for Africa. I didn't even think twice, Kerry. I left everything that I owned. Just said, you can have it all. I don't care. I just want to be happy and free. Got on a plane. I landed on the 6th of June, 2014. It was an Indigenous round day for the AFL. Port Adelaide and Melbourne Demons were playing at Traeger Park in Alice Springs. And the reason it's so pivotal is I would then go on to spend the next 7 years in country helping the Indigenous and non-Indigenous to break the ice issues and the social problems. I was a plumber when I arrived.
Whoa, wow.
I was just a normal guy, just a plumber. I land in Alice Springs. I do my couple of months there to get ready for Africa. I go to Africa. I climb Kilimanjaro. I snap my ACL a day and a half from the top, but still managed to make it to the top, just sheer brute force and mentality. Scattered Sarah's ashes, and something happened to me at the top of that mountain where I just decided to let things go and say I need to do something about my life. And when I came back from Africa, I moved to Alice Springs permanently. And I said to my mom, there's so many issues in this city, in this town, and I want to change. I want to help. And I don't want to do this building anymore. And she said, son, if you want to see a change, you're going to have to be the change. So you're going to have to jack everything in and do something about it. What you going to do? I said, I want to help drug addicts. She said, you're barely clean. I said, I don't care. Let's do it. So she said, all right, well, we can't support you with money or nothing, but we'll support you with love and you do what you want to do and we'll back you. So I went and got an interview for a job in a rehab. There was like 14 or 15 people getting interviewed for the just support worker. And the interview will stick with me forever. The ladies that interviewed me basically asked me, what are you doing here? Like your resume, you're a plumber. I don't understand it. I said, I'm 2 months clean off meth and I'm going to change the world. And I'd like to do it with your help if you would allow me the opportunity to work here. And if you don't, I'm going to do it anyway. They gave me a job. I worked day and night, studying anything I could on night shifts, stand-up night shifts for 12 hours. I would go to the library and get CDs around all the culture and Aboriginal history and learn everything I could and just immerse myself. Any opportunities that would come up in the organization, which this great lady who took me in as like a second mother, Carol Taylor, she would offer professional development opportunities. So a case manager went on leave and you're a support worker. She said, you want to try that out? Yeah, I'll do that. So every single position, I'll be like, yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that. I'll do that. I'll do that. And then 18 months in, she kind of brought me in and had a long chat with me and said, I found a small bucket of money with the Primary Healthcare Network. There's never been a program like this. I know you're the guy if you want to do it. you'll have no resource, but you'll have my backing, and you want to start a non-clinical meth program out in the community.
Amazing.
So, and I said, yeah, I'm in. And she's like, I didn't told you like what it's going to pay. I said, I don't care. You can do it I'll do it for free as long as you give me a house. I don't care. Like, just let me loose. I'm ready to do this.
When you got a passion, nothing can stop you, can it?
Absolutely. Like, not at all. When it's burning white hot, you can't be stopped. Yeah, look, the next 4.5, 5 years, we ended up going on to make it the most successful non-clinical program for meth in the country. We had Malcolm Turnbull come and meet with us and was going to fund us until he got ousted by Scott Morrison. There was a whole thing. We changed legislations. We got written to drug reform policies in Victorian Parliament. What else did we do? Oh, we changed the whole criminal justice system's opinion of addiction and helped them understand it. And to the point I could walk in any court in the Northern Territory and represent my client as the guy from the program, not the lawyer. And I had more power than any lawyer. Everyone would listen to what I had to say because they knew I wasn't backing someone trying to play the system. I was trying to back someone that could be broken by it if they ended up in it. I had the local court judges on our side, the Supreme Court justices on our side, the private lawyers, the legal aid lawyers. I even got the prosecution on our side by the end of it. The parole board on our side. In fact, in the end, they ended up bringing me up to advise the parole board and run sessions on addiction for them. Most importantly, we changed thousands of lives. And there was just me, Dion, and Jordan, technically. And then we had Max and Amir, but they were kind of on a sub-program. But realistically, we were only funded for like 2.5 positions. And we were 24-hour day on-call service. I'd end up going into homes at 3 a.m. I had guns pulled on me, knives pulled on me. I didn't care. I was loving it. I'm like, this is cool. Let's go. What else? What other chaos?
That's amazing, Danny.
Yeah.
That's just so inspirational. Gosh, I've got no words.
The mad thing about that was, right, I went there broken, a shell of my former self with no idea what I was going to do with my life, at a complete loss.
Yeah.
And as a plumber, I left there in September 2021 and they named a building after me. And I'm not saying that to impress anyone. I'm saying it to impress upon people that your current situation or place you sit in is not your final destination. And anything that you're being put through right now is placing you in the power position to understand that you're going to be given what you've been asking life for if you would just make no permanent decisions over temporary problems.
I love that. No, I mean, when I'm on a suicide prevention mission, the notion that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Yep.
A really loud message that we need to get out there.
Yeah, I just lost one of my good friends only 2 weeks ago to it. And it's not the first one. So I love that's amazing that you're doing that. And I really champion anything that people do about that because it's just wrong that it's not talked about openly enough. It's not out. Like last year, I was invited by an amazing man called Paolo Rex Fish. He runs Zero Suicides Victoria. And we laid 2,500 shoes on the Parliament lawns at Canberra.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah. And the media blacked us out. Beyond Blue blacked us out. Like this whole thing happened because we're not allowed to talk about suicide. And we were meant to be given a men's minister for mental health. Everything got blocked and vetoed because for some reason, I don't know, we're not able to talk about suicide and the fact that it's real and it's happening and females and males are being affected by it on a daily basis, if not on an hourly basis.
I thought we were meant to be breaking the stigma.
It's a very interesting man, that Mr. Paolo Rex Fish. I must introduce you to him. Yeah.
And I love the fact that you have rallied so much support for helping people battling addictions because so often addictions are the catalyst for so many other things that happen in society, yet it's the thing that's never talked about.
And interestingly enough, this is the one difference between my mother and me is she's very much always worked for and supported big charities. I don't feel the same way. When I understand admin costs and how some are maybe not really telling me the full truth of what's happening. And so I've always gone about doing my own charity work. So for instance, last year, I was so affected by the homelessness in Adelaide and also affected by the mortgage cliff where up to 865,000 Australians could be losing their homes and going homeless too, that I ended up spending a week on the streets in Adelaide and filmed it all like that. As in, when I say filmed it all, there was no camera crew. I just had my phone and a sleeping bag, and I lived rough for a week. I didn't have a wallet, money, nothing, and ended up raising $10,000. But most importantly, I raised the collective consciousness around homelessness not being a choice, but being a chore. There's too many people misunderstanding and misinformed around addiction, homelessness, mental health, domestic violence, because they learn everything off some influencer on Instagram that's not speaking what needs to be said. There's great influencers out there, but they're not getting enough traction. And it's like we're making the idiots rich and the intelligent poor.
Yeah. My hubby and I actually started an organisation, and we ended up running it through a church because to try and do it ourselves was going to be too difficult. But it was basically a movement to feed the homeless up in our area. And that ran for 6 years, and it ended with 70 volunteers. And my hubby and I stood down from the running of the whole thing, but we led a monthly team, and it was just up at the local park, a Lions park that the Lions Club had built for community, and up to 30 people would gather on a Saturday night. We would just give them a barbecue, a food hamper, but what we gave them was love.
Yeah.
That was the one thing that, and we saw so many of them, their lives change, and they said the one thing that really helped them so much was that none of us judged them. We loved them right where they were at right then, and something that they didn't get, from society. They just got judgment everywhere they went. But there was a lot of people there, as you say, that basically were just everyday Australians, and they'd lost a job or something like that. All of a sudden they're homeless.
Yeah.
And so many Australians are just 4 paychecks away from being
100%. 100%.
Yeah. And so that's a big stigma in itself, isn't it? That people, it could happen to anyone.
Yeah.
All right. So you've been clean for 10 years, Danny, is that right? Since you stood on that mountain?
Yeah. We'll be just over 10 years. So 14th of February 2014, I think it was, when I didn't touch meth again. So yeah.
One question that I do ask people is, what's been your greatest light bulb moment? Was that it on the mountain, or has there been another one?
I would suggest that the catalyst would have been being up on that mountain, to be honest, and realizing that the world is bigger than me, and to stop thinking that, in all honesty, and I mean this in the kindest way, no one cares about your problems. They're your problems. So make sure you care about, because no one else cares. Like, we're living in a world with this Messiah complex, like someone's coming to save us. No one's coming to save you, man. Like, just get up and sort it out yourself, and then find people aligned with you in a community that can then help you grow.
You really did that first step that we hear in the 12-step rooms up on that mountain, didn't you? And that is, admitted we were powerless over our addiction, and that our lives had become unmanageable.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
First step, acceptance of what is.
Yeah.
I just want to ask you too quickly as we close up, your self-care strategies. I like to do this because so often we talk about the mess and people just keep talking about the mess, but people want to hear about how do you do it day by day? What's your strategies day by day for self-care to keep yourself mentally well and able to keep getting out there and achieving your mission?
I'm very open about my addictions, mental health issues. I run all my social media stuff. And so I think the biggest self-care tool is to be honest with people and stop hiding away the fact that your past may have been a bit broken. Because the more you have honesty and integrity in your journey, the more you become, excuse my language, unfuckwithable. The key aim here is to become that. Now, listen, I go a lot of great thing for my mental health, and it's free. You don't need to buy one, is going in the sea. So in the morning, I'll go to the gym, and after the gym, I'll go and get in the sea for 5 minutes. The action of resilience of doing it is just as rewarding as the actual cold therapy scientific stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So those two things, self-care, especially when you're on the up and you've got money and income. I go and do a lot of acupuncture and neuroemotional therapy with my naturopathic doctor. I don't believe in Western medicine. I'm just going to say it right now. I do not buy into it, and I don't want a bar of it, but I respect anyone that does. So I'm very holistic. So I have a naturopathic doctor. I have a that does that side. I have a homeopathic doctor that's treated me ever since I recovered, and he's the head of homeopathy in Australia. He's an amazing man in Brisbane called Dr. Amir. So I use those things, and then even little things like every month I'll go have a facial. I don't know why. It's just,
Yeah,
it just
be
feels
kind
nice.
to yourself. Yeah, I love that.
Every 6-8 weeks I'll get me feet done, like not painted toenails. I'm just said, get your feet done. Something that helps me most though, every day I have that is a struggle or your mind plays tricks on you or you deep dive, I just text random people or write letters to random people that have had an impact in my life, and I tell them how amazing they are.
Oh,
I
wow.
do it all the time. Like as soon as my mental health's declining and I'm having one of those days, I'll just think of a client, a friend, a colleague, a family member, or even a social media follower, right? And I'll just randomly send them a message about how amazing they are and how proud they should be and how well they're doing. And I'm telling you now, a self-care strategy on the planet.
That's gratitude in action right there.
100%.
Danny, as we close up, it's a big question, but what's your message for the world?
Be kind. It costs nothing. There is so many people out there in this world that are struggling and suffering in silence. The next time you go to your barista to get a coffee, get your chin up, look them in the eye and actually say how well they are doing for you and how much you enjoy their coffee. The next time you're at Coles at a checkout, get your chin up and greet the lady that's probably suffering and struggling through 40, 50, 60-hour weeks, getting paid absolute disgraceful wages by a company that's destroying families with their pricing. And they're doing everything they can to smile and to help you. Next time you walk down the street, don't cross the road because someone was homeless. Why don't you just go and say hello? They don't want your money. They don't want your food. They would just like some acknowledgement that they even exist. It costs absolutely nothing to be kind. And guess what? It actually feels really good when you do it for other people to help yourself. That would be what I would say is just be kind. Like, stop following idiots on social media and start following your heart and your mind and your dreams and follow that with kindness.
Such a beautiful message to end today. And I've just loved talking with you so much. And I know that your story is just going to impact so many more lives. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you very much for having me. And you take care of yourself and keep doing the amazing work you're doing with all of your different ventures.
Thanks, Danny. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Thank you for listening to Stories of Hope with Kerry Atherton. If this conversation helped you, please consider sharing the podcast with a friend or leaving a rating and review on your podcast player. If you'd like to find out more about Kerry Atherton, head to storiesofhope.com.au, where you can purchase her books or find her next event. Check the show notes for links and information about our guest in this episode. And remember, you don't have to walk your path alone.